Welcome to Slightly Off Script, the marriage show where we remind you that marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun. I'm one of your hosts, Bethany Needham, here with the most handsome, most kind, most caring, supportive, loving. I just don't even have enough adjectives to describe you today, Mr. Andy Needham.
If I was a more cynical human, I would be like, what did you do?
No, I just feel like I'm going through some stuff right now, and you are having to show up triple and you're showing up quadruple.
Quadruple?
Yeah. You're like,
How do you like in middle age?
It has its ups and downs.
Ins and outs.
Ins and outs, ups and downs. Yep. I'm, just in case anyone wondered, I'm in the exciting preparation for some middle-age testing that is a little intrusive, not going to lie.
So if Bethany just runs offset at some point,
Yep.
we'll just
end
of
stay
episode.
tuned.
Stay tuned. It's a cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah. There's a cliff. No, I'm surviving it.
Yeah.
But this weekend, probably not going to go down in the books as a favorite for middle age, but that's okay.
Yeah. I went into this weekend hoping, I've just been itching. It's early spring when we're recording, and I've been itching to get out there to do yard work. Last week I stacked some wood, which was like, I just love getting outdoors. And we bought a whole bunch of mulch to put out in the gardens.
Which you did get mocked for doing it too early. Yeah.
Well, one thing you've been spending a lot of time on Saturdays doing is getting some ink on your arm.
Yeah, I have. I don't know. I feel like this is going to get controversial to our people who are not into the tats.
How did you process that yourself? Like the decision to you had like a couple little tattoos, but then you're like, I'm going for it.
Maybe this is a middle-aged thing, but to be honest, I have always loved tattoos. I am somebody, you can make fun of me, but here's my theory. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I do love art. I am not like one of those people that is smart about art. You know, people that look at and like,
art smart?
I'm not art smart.
You're in a farty arty smarty.
No, not that. But I love people when they have like gallery walls and things with good art, all of that. My theory with tattoos is I think it's even better because you get to take that beauty with you everywhere you go. So I don't have to go home and look at this beautiful art. I literally have it tattooed, just like look down. But I think there's something beautiful. It's not like there's some tattoos, maybe not my favorite, but that's the same as art. But I actually have always been someone who loved sleeve tattoos. I love the leg sleeves, just all the things. And for a long time, I told myself for whatever reason that I just couldn't, I could never do that myself. And then, I don't know, I just had this like light bulb moment of actually I could if I wanted. Maybe it's a little rebellious me right now. It's like a rebellious side of my 40s, but I'm loving it. I got a guy in Manchester.
I know a guy
in Manchester. He's been fantastic.
He doesn't
to
speak
work with.
English though, so you are communicating through Google Translate.
Yeah. Or the other guys in the same shop, they can translate too. But when we write back and forth and we're like planning it, he uses Google Translate.
That's wild. What a world we live in.
Yeah. He knows kind English. Like when he sees me flinch, he'll say, "You okay?" Like the important things. Yeah. He's learned because of my tiny bladder and the hours of work he's been doing. He's learned me being like, "Bathroom, please."
That's another reason for me not to get a tattoo because I tend to.
Yeah, you would be in trouble. Yeah. No, he is super nice, very kind. The thing that I like about him is I trust
I hope so.
But sometimes I know. If you don't know someone, I feel like I like his style, and so I can just let him do his thing, and it's coming out. It's a little bit more to go. Well, it's not done.
We've said that this has been a personality test because when you started your new job, we were redoing our budget, and we said, okay, we're going to do a modest amount each week that we each get as like our personal.
We get an allowance.
Yep. So it goes for you. You use like your Venmo card. I use the Cash App, and we load the money, and that's our money to do with what we want. And it's a decent amount of money, but it's enough that you have to like save up to do different
Yeah.
things. And so I have been the slow spender, and you've been the as soon as you have the money.
Yeah. I have scheduled my appointments based on how long does it take me to save up for one more
Yeah,
session.
yeah,
So,
that's great.
yeah, I got like one or two to go, and then I need a new goal because my sleeve will be done. So, yeah. And it's okay if you're offended by it. I'm not offended that other people are offended by it. I'm not out to offend people, but, it's fine if you look at my arm and you're like, ew, gross. You like it though, and you're not even.
I enjoy it. No, I
Yeah.
don't know. I just again, I've always said like if you give me extra money, and I guess I'm proving it now. I've always said if you give me extra money, that's not what I'm going to spend it on,
Oh yeah,
and
but I like
I don't have
that
a
you
problem.
like it on
No,
me
yeah,
because you're
that's
not
good.
someone that
No, no, I'm not
who
like,
would go and
yeah,
get
I'm
one.
like, could you hold your arm behind your back while we kiss? I'm just kidding.
You're like, ugh,
Yeah,
gross.
no, that's not that
Ick.
at all. So it's kind of an example though of like different passions and different priorities, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Is how do we empower one another? And
Yes.
I think that's been a word that when we started to outline this episode, the more we talked about it, I was like, oh, this really is something that we do for each other and have done for each other throughout our marriage, and something that we really care about a lot. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And as controversial as it will sound, if you had said to me that you were like, ugh, I don't like the sleeve tattoos, I actually would not have done it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I feel like you were supportive. Again, didn't need to be your favorite thing, but you were like,
Well, it's not my thing, but
yeah.
that's different than it not being a cool thing. That's like, I'm just not as cool as you are, so I just know it. Like, I don't want to be the guy. Like, I honestly think in some ways, like, it is a personality thing. Like, if I, like, my personality, if I show up with a sleeve tattoo, people are gonna be like, trying a little hard to be cool. Whereas, like, for you, they're like, kind of on brand. Like,
That she tries too hard to be.
no, that you are cool, and that it's just like somebody's gonna, make an artistic expression of that. So,
Oh, guys, can we just sit in this moment? I don't think ever in my life have I thought about being cool.
well,
I was for sure not the cool kid.
I'm
So,
definitely the nerd. So, I mean, somebody's at least maybe it's a matter of comparison.
fair enough.
It's a
Fair enough.
benchmarking thing. So, yeah, but in terms of empowerment, we want to kind of unpack what that is and look at it in some different domains of marriage and how we have experienced that together. And I do think like there's definitely going to be some things we're going to share that are very unique to who God made us to be and to our particular story. But I do hope that no matter what season of marriage you're in or what your values are or what your passions are, which a lot of this is about the God-given passions and how we help each other kind of embrace those or pursue those, that you'll be able to grab onto some principles that will be helpful for you. So, yeah.
I even think for our single listeners, this is actually, there's going to be principles in this that are helpful for how we show up for our friends, how we show up for the people in our community.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
a little something for everyone
Yeah.
today.
So what's our first big idea?
First big idea is something that we have printed and hung on the wall in our house and has been for years is this idea of what does it look like to be on mission together, and looking at marriage as not just a relationship but actually a mission and a togetherness in that. So yeah, marriage on mission.
Yeah. So when we think about this idea of, I mean, mission is one of our values and that we've talked about in our marriage values, which are community, authenticity, mission, and play. In some ways, we are going to talk about our desires, but they're not just like desires that aren't tied to purpose. I think is one of the things that would be distinctive in here is like, and sometimes that purpose is just, hey, we would love to create a more beautiful home, or it could be whatever it is. But when we say empower one another, it is not just like spoil one another or just like flattery or empty, like, hey, go spend whatever money you want on whatever you want. There are moments to do that, but the principle that we're trying to drive at is literally tethered to purpose.
Yeah. And also just this idea of empowering one another, of like a togetherness and let's make this happen. I was reading sort of the difference of being like, yeah, do whatever you want to do versus actually coming alongside and being like, all right, how do we accomplish this? And I actually feel like that is something that has been a strength of yours in our marriage. I have felt and been on the receiving end of that many, many times.
Yeah, empowerment is not just like basic permission, like, yeah, you go do you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I allow you to do this, or, that sort of, but it does require a measure of like, hey, I'm for you in this. I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to make an investment in that. We will make an investment in this. That's the kind of stuff that's important. So yeah.
For sure. Acknowledging that and then just the perspective of that too, of the, you know, we're not just, I'm not just giving you a thumbs up, but I'm also going to invest. And there is usually sacrifice
Yeah.
on both sides. So
Two scriptures that come to mind. One is from Ecclesiastes 4:9, which is that two are better than one because they bring a return on their labor. So there's a sense of partnership in marriage that way. The second one, and I was just looking at this passage this morning, I love Romans 12. It gives this vision of what it looks like to live a life of worship. And then Paul does this portion of the verses, and he's kind of doing this litany of things like, what does it look like to have love in action? And one of the phrases that he mentions is the idea of outdo one another in showing honor. And it's like, that's the best kind of competition in marriage, is like the idea of like, we're in competition to support each other better than the other one. So,
and talk about something that won't come natural unless you're intentional with it. Because I feel like naturally is sort of get mine. You
yeah,
know, again, I think we have talked about this just in our own marriage before, but that temptation to compete on the more of the, you know, I would say victim side of it. Like, I have more to do. I like almost trying to get you to
yeah,
feel, get on my side with all these things that I have to do and the
competitive,
pressure.
competitive victimhood. Yeah, yeah.
Pressure's on me. And so instead, shifting that competitive nature into this idea of outdoing one another, huge shift.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of like the big crazy ways we've done that, but some of those other ways are really boots on the ground at the level of like in the home, just the responsibilities of being an adult, living in the world, being in relationship, parenting, all the just mundane, ordinary things. So what does empowerment look like in the home?
I think one of the things for us is this idea of a shared load. Like when we look at the home and we think about the things that are needed, the responsibilities, everything else, it hasn't been something that's been okay, here's his stuff and here's her stuff. It's been this team effort of let's work together, and it changes in seasons.
Yes.
It even week to week, like depending on the schedule and what each of us is walking through, and how do you come at that from, again, this sense of how do we work together to accomplish this, not in a way that's like, okay, I can't do that, I can't, but a togetherness.
Yeah, I think a real simple, practical application of this, I tend to be the one that oversees the finances, but one of the things that we have learned, and this is a pro tip, this is free, but with like medical bills, we have learned that if you call the hospital or the doctor's office and ask if they'll give you a discount for paying right away, you often get like 20% discount
I've
sometimes.
gotten some big fat discounts on
Yeah.
those medical bills. Yeah.
And you're like, you actually do that function at work. Like your boss will give you the bills and you'll go pay the bills. And so you're able to, like, if you have a sort of a task pile, you'll go after it. And so that's one of the things, like I'll put together a folder of medical bills, and even though I'm paying most of the bills, and I'll be like, hey, Bethany, cause that is like, it's going to take a little bit of time to make those phone calls. But that's a way, like for me, it's like, hey, I'm asking you to help me, but I'm also I'm giving you the tools to do it. But then you have this skill. Maybe it's the woo. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I get the same discounts that you get.
Well, and I do think this kind of requires that rhythm of check-ins, like
Yeah.
coming together, and that can look different at different times, but coming together to together recognize, okay, what do we need to get done? And then each sort of taking different tasks according. Sometimes it is based on, hey, I don't mind doing that, or that is something that you're gifted at, or I'm gifted at, or I have more time to do that this week. So just being intentional about checking in regularly to kind of make sure you're both going after the same things. I think that's a big one. If you have different lists in your head, then
Yeah.
that can get very frustrating. Like you feel like you're accomplishing a lot, but nothing on the list in my head is getting done. So
Yeah, I don't know that again, with different seasons, we've done different things. I feel like the point is communication in a rhythm, but we've used a lot of different tools. Sometimes it's been like a Sunday night meeting. For a while when our kids were like teenagers and they'd go to youth group, we used to go out, and that was like our date night where we talk about the next week. We have on our phones, there's a shared shopping list that we have that like you can add things to that list. And if one of us goes shopping, then we know to get it. Sometimes that has caused fights because you don't get the
I
thing.
was going to say you're way better. I'll run into the store and
I'm
think I
like,
know
you
what's on the
just went
list.
to the store. There's like 6 things on there. Like, I
Don't-
empowered you. Now do it.
You're not wrong. I received that.
It's all right. And then like even a honey-do list, which we probably are overdue to revisit that because those are just like the silly little things of like oil changes and just
Yeah.
stuff that we gotta, whatever. It's life.
Yeah.
Very unspectacular.
But still, it's the stuff every day that can pile up if you're not intentional. So, and again, doing it together, it lightens the load for everyone. So, teamwork makes the dream work,
Yeah.
so they say.
Well, and showing appreciation is another part of that in terms of at the home is the, you know, gratitude when it's not spoken is not always received. Like you really need to vocalize your appreciation. Not that was not like like you need to you do a really good job at this, but as a couple, like we need to speak our appreciation.
Yeah, for sure. In the same way that we need to speak expectations, speaking appreciation and gratitude is.
Yeah,
So, I'm grateful for you for the
I'm grateful for you.
I know you weren't fishing, but I know, right? Not just at home though, but also just thinking vocation of ministry. This is something
Yeah,
I actually really, if I can say that, I enjoy this in our marriage in terms of how this shows up.
yeah. I mean, the lines between vocation and ministry for me, I've been in vocational ministry the whole time. For you, you were full time for a while. You still do a lot of ministry. Your work is ministry, but it's not a ministry context. You're working in drug and alcohol recovery. So it's looked different in different spaces. But one of the principles here that we've walked through really well is that there have been times when it comes to empowering one another around vocation where there is an agreed upon imbalance. And that imbalance could be we have young children. I'm working full time. You're working in the home. And so the imbalance is that you're doing so much more in the home than I am doing. That imbalance also were times when one of us was pursuing a new role, or like when I was doing school, or when I was traveling more with the band. We always had to adjust. So it never showed up the way we thought it would. However, we really did talk about, and even things like there was a season when you were working full time at our church, and I had just started with the band where it was like, hey, the way that this is going to work is that you're going to actually be making more of the income than I am at this juncture. That's not necessarily what I desire for the long haul, but how do you feel about that? Can we do that? And yes, because, and then that you saying yes to that and embracing that was part of how you empowered me to pursue that dream.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like beating a dead horse, but I think all of these things coming back to communication in terms of like the imbalance, it's being willing to talk about it before you're in a place of frustration or resentment. And to me, I look at like whenever if we've found ourselves in a place of resentment, if I rewind the tape, it's often that there wasn't clear communication going into it. And then the flip side is I look at seasons, I'll use when you travel with a band as an example, because I got a lot of people that asked about it a lot. Because if you looked at our life from the outside during that season, it was pretty wild.
That was not balanced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you were full time with the band. I had two small
Yep.
kids and was working full time at the church. And it was, the amount of people that are like, how, like, are you okay? Does it? And I remember thinking in that season that we're great. And it wasn't that we were some sort of super couple or whatever. I think a lot of it was we talked very openly and honestly about what we were walking into. There wasn't any, we weren't sugarcoating this. Like we knew that this meant you were going to be gone a lot, that I was going to need to, take more responsibility in terms of the home, the kids. But then a lot of those conversations led to, okay, what are some things that we need to put in place so that it's not too much on me, so that we can do this in a way that's healthy, and little things like we had someone help with the house cleaning during that time. We set up different kind of childcare, things along the way. But all of that, being able to talk about it, I do remember that season as one where I genuinely was excited and supportive of you doing what you were doing. And also felt very supported and loved by you doing what
Mhm.
I wanted to do, which
Yeah.
I didn't want to travel with the kids, with the band. I wanted to work at the church and stay home and do what I was doing. And it was great to be able to do that for that season, literally together. We weren't always like physically together, but I always felt
Yeah.
like we were together in terms of supporting one another. So,
Yeah, one thing that I think helped with that because again, even just the financial strain of that season, which like God was just so good to us because it turned out way different than we thought. But I remember when we were first considering that transition. At that point, you weren't even aware that you would become working at the church, and we really did like go before the Lord and say like, if this costs us, like what's the worst? Maybe worst case scenario might be but what's like the minimum we'd have to make? What would be how extreme would we be willing to go to pursue this reality? And at the time, like at one point, we were thinking like maybe we'll move into someone's basement and like live like minimalist. Like that it would have been crazy.
yeah.
But I think that exercise for us of going through that prayerful process and saying like, "Look, we will do this, Lord, even if it costs us this much." And then, God's kindness is not like a recipe, like, oh, if you obey, then therefore you get. But God was very kind and he gave you a job that you loved. He ended up in that season, we bought a house. Yeah, there's a lot of other parts of that puzzle. Empowerment is not like a naive pie in the sky. Like it does take real hard conversations
Yeah.
about like these things have a cost. And part of the empowering part is like, are we willing to enter that cost together in a way that's not going to drive a wedge of resentment in the future if it doesn't show up? And there were, there were other things about the band that didn't show up the way that I would have thought or dreamed or hoped. And that was, that's part of every endeavor.
No, absolutely.
How does this show up? Like I just use an example on your end. I think of two things. Let's start with like when you get occasionally invites to speak at women's events, which you love to do. It's a couple times a year typically. How am I able to be helpful to you in that space?
Oh, you were like the
That was not, again, I feel like I'm asking these
no,
questions that are
you're
like
not
fishing for
fishing,
compliments.
but I'm saying in all honesty, I don't think like this is the moments in our marriage where I get to see how God brought us together, and being married to you actually to me enables me to do things I don't know how I would do if I didn't have you. Because even the speaking thing, I am not a tech person. I'm sure if I took the time I could learn it, but I just haven't. And you have always been so incredible in terms of if I'm getting slides together or I need to create something, you go to work on that and make something so much better than I would ever know how to make. And just being supportive in that way, supportive in terms of making sure, hey, if I'm traveling or I'm doing something, that my housing is taken care of, that transportation, that like you traveled for so long with the band, you've done so much of that that it comes very naturally to you. And you've never made me feel like in some like that it's a hassle for you. In some ways, you have this way of doing these things and almost in a way of like I love that I get to do this for you,
I do.
and
Yeah.
it takes a huge weight off of me when I'm doing events like this to just be able to go and show up and speak, lead worship, whatever it is, and not have to stress about all those little details. Like you have it in the bag taken care of. So
Yeah. I think the other example that I think about on for you in terms of a hope or a dream was when you had a friend say, let's start a podcast, and you didn't know what a podcast was.
I didn't. I was like, the excited adventure. Yeah, let's do it. What's a podcast? And she sent me some to listen to because I really had
This is like
never.
almost a decade ago, maybe not quite, but like around that long
Yeah,
ago. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember you coming to me and being like, listen, if you decide you want to do this, then I fully support you and I will take care of the back end of this. If you want to do the interviewing, that side of things, then I will absolutely. And that's honestly, Hey Girl. How Hey Girl happened was I didn't learn how to do to this day when people write me and they're like, oh, I want to talk to you about how to do a podcast. I'm like, I have no idea.
How to use Zoom. No.
It's like,
Well, but I mean, to me, that was a great example of your wheelhouse. Like I thought, again, I listened to every single episode very carefully because I edited them all, but your skill set was the connection and the interview and my skill set. Not that I can't do any of those things. I hope so, because we're doing a podcast together now. But I'm like, I know how to do the back end. And we had to, like, where we had to wrestle through it was like, I was kind of very clear about like, if you want this to happen, then this is the way we have to do it.
Yeah.
Again, clarity is kindness here, because I'm like, this is an extra thing that I need to, and same thing with the one we're doing now. It's like, this is a passion project. This is not my vocation. So I need to be able to edit it early in the morning. I need to be able to be on this rhythm so that I can dedicate my working hours to the thing that is my primary ministry. And so we've had very clear communication about that, because those lines can't be blurred, and we want to, honor the work that God's given us to do as well. So, yeah.
Well, it's a good thing to acknowledge that, because, sitting on this side, it can look like, oh, we're just empowering each other. And it's all smooth sailing. Like
Yeah.
we're just cheerleading. And some of it is you're learning as you go. Like we have had plenty of headbutting fights around podcasts. You're frustrated, rightly so, because I'm getting behind and doing things, typical. And I'm in tears, melting down because I'm overwhelmed because I've procrastinated till it was way too late. Just all of those things do come into play. And so the willingness to learn, continue to communicate, to show grace, forgiveness, and learning your rhythms. Like I feel like this podcast, part of what's been fun is we learned a lot of things
Yeah.
in the last podcast I did in terms of how we work together, how we show up to things, where our gift sets are. And a lot of those lessons were learned through fights, tears, and,
Yeah.
all that fun.
Well, and there were different junctures where with the first iteration of your podcast, which was super successful, where we had to have other conversations where it's like, we have to take a break.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was you putting up the flag, sometimes it was me. And, I think that, one of the things that I've tried to learn, especially as someone who's creative, and I still fight this battle to this day, is that you don't have to do something perfectly to start it, just start. And failure is okay. Like, it's okay. Like if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't become the best version, I like our band, like we were very successful by a lot of metrics. And on the other hand, we were, you could say we were a failure by a lot of metrics. And I've done a lot of different things through the years because of my wiring entrepreneurially. And I think when you want to support each other in your dreams, even speaking, we get that question a lot about speaking. It's like, a lot of people, and I think there was a time this was true of you. It's like, hey, in order to be a speaker, my goal is to be at the IF conference, like a large national women's conference. And I don't think that's a terrible goal in all scenarios, but I think we miss so much of what's right in front of us trying to chase and then we also feel like, well, I'll never be ready for that. So I'm going to wait until I'm good enough or whatever. And I think one of the things that God has given us so much more, like just comfort in this season, is like I enjoy preaching at churches. I don't care about speaking at conferences. I like it because I love just seeing the different churches that are out there. I feel like I can do a good job. I know I can deliver and serve a church well. And I remember one time I went and I did a youth camp. I spoke for a youth camp. I've done a lot of worship leading for youth camp. Could do that. A camp invited me to speak. And I really, by about halfway through the week, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go down in history as the worst youth camp speaker, but this is not my lane. It is just not. But I tried it and I was okay with it's okay. That's fine.
And it's a big thing to learn how to walk through with one another, to support each other's aspirations, dreams, and power, like all of that, but also to walk with one another through failure and walk with one another through disappointment. And how do you stand alongside each other in that? Because it's the whole empowerment is, again, being for each other. And so if I'm empowering you to do something and it flops, also part of this journey is how do I, scripture talks about we rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those, mourn with those who are mourning. And that's a big deal in marriage. Is the last thing either one of us needs is to be beaten down by the other one when we're already down. We don't need to kick the other one while they're down. Even if, and I would say in the instances where the reality is, we sacrificed to make this happen and now it's hurting both of us that it didn't. even in that scenario, how do we love and support
Yeah.
one another through it? Because that's also part of life.
Mhm.
And that's part of taking risks in our home, in our ministry, in our jobs, and all of those things. And so, yeah, that's, I would say, another practice of this is just staying on each other's team through all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And this is kind of an adjacent piece of that too. But like one of the things when we were considering launching this form of the podcast is I kind of re-upped on research and the newest tools and just trying to get my head around, okay, what is this going to look like? What does it look like to do this sustainably? I'd say one of the most important pieces of counsel, and this is again very elementary, but it's been really key for me, was if you don't enjoy doing it for the process of doing it, and it's only about the metrics and the outcomes, like what other people experience, then you will give up very easily. Because, like, we're not a viral, massive podcast. Like, we're not on the iTunes top 100.
What?
I'm
I'm just
sorry.
kidding.
Yeah. And even that whole world has changed so much. There's so much more in the marketplace. When you started 10 years ago, like, and the metrics changed. Like, there was a lot of vanity metrics where, like, in some ways, like your last podcast at its peak was way bigger than what we have now. Some of that is that the numbers are a little more realistic now about how many people actually listen to things. But all that aside, I want to, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole. But the point of it is when you're supporting each other's dreams, like one of the things that you can help each other understand is like, what does success actually mean? What does it actually look like to be successful? And I feel like now in maturity, like for us in areas like platform, like speaking, social media, podcasts, it's really just about like, I love the community of people, our small community of people. I love connecting with them. I want to see more people be a part of that, but I don't really, that's not my most important metrics of success.
Yeah, honestly, for me, even if we're talking about the podcast side of it, these connections with you
Yeah.
every week and having something where we sit down and we talk and we process through things is enough of a win for me to do it. And when God uses it to speak to somebody else, like when somebody reaches out and they're like, oh, that really, it's just the extra for like, I love that. And I appreciate that that's true of this, but there's actually enough of it in just you and I
Yeah.
sitting here that I would keep going for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How do we celebrate one another's wins? Like, what does that look like?
Oh, I think, I mean, honestly, some of it's just verbally, like
Yeah.
verbally celebrating, congratulations. Hey, I'm so proud of you. It sounds cheesy, but I think people need to actually vocalize these things more. Don't just think about them. Think about the way that you would congratulate your kid
Yeah.
and use that language more with your spouse, not in an insincere, like mockery way, but in a genuine,
Yeah.
like there have been so many moments in our marriage where I am legitimately just proud of you. There have been moments where I'm sitting in a church and just listening to you bring truth and teach God's word and just hearing how much you've developed as a speaker and a teacher and watching you, like watching other people be encouraged, blessed, challenged by you. And I just am like, oh, I get to be his wife. And I don't want to just think that and feel that. I want to say that to
Yeah.
you. I want you to know that. And just as I would if it was my kid up there, 1,000%. Like when they come down, I'd be like,
You're like the soccer mom of pastors' wives.
But seriously, like,
Go.
yeah, take the enthusiasm you throw at your kids and start throwing
Yeah.
some your spouse's way because honestly, I don't think we do it enough. And it's not always because we don't think that or feel that, but I don't know, we've made it weird about saying that out loud and we've made it like it's some sort of cheesy thing. But no, I'm proud, like I honestly feel like it is a gift to be your wife
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
I want it to be something that I say on a regular basis, not just say to other people. Like that's the other thing. We'll tell other
Yeah.
people
That's often true.
like say it to them.
Yeah.
So
The other thing we're talking about under this is like we check in with each other often. Again, this could apply to the home. A lot of it is about the home, just the ordinary part of life, or dreams and endeavors. My catchphrase is "How can I serve you?" Like I tend to say that to you, and your version of that is "What can I do to be helpful?"
yeah.
And when you said that, I was like, "Oh, it's kind of cool that we actually have like sort of language in our marriage that we have that we often will say to each other, like, hey, how can I be helpful? And like, we'll say that going into a weekend or into a night or whatever, like, what does it look like to serve you? So yeah, so that's kind of I mean, obviously the ministry side of it, very purposeful, but then sometimes it's just like, the part of like building memories with our family or other passion areas that are just dreams and ideas. And I was talking to my best friend Dan yesterday, and he booked a really cool concert experience with his son. And he was like, yeah, part of why I was thinking about this is like he's getting closer to high school. And I was like, you talk a lot about like the experiences that you have with your kids that are memories. And I just thinking like, oh, I don't have so many more months to do those type of things before he's going to graduate. And so, yeah, an example of that for us is that you've been very supportive since Josiah was very young. We've been working, Josiah and I, to see as many Major League Baseball parks as possible, which is something that you have both very much supported me in and could not care less about yourself.
I'm glad you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think that that's a good example though, because it's I feel very supported by you.
Yeah.
And I also know that you don't care.
Yeah. I care about you guys.
Yeah. And then as Mercy was getting, there's a couple of different things we've done with Mercy, but one of those things, I think about going to see Hamilton, you guys did together in New York City,
epic.
did a New York City trip, but then it was at one of her birthdays, she really wanted to do a Disney experience, and you just took her and a girlfriend, and yeah.
I think it was something where she loves Disney. To this day, she loves Disney.
She's asking to go back already.
Yeah, that she had like she would never have imagined that I would have brought her to Disney
Pulled
for
it
that.
off,
And
yeah.
that was wicked fun to make that happen with her bestie and her bestie's mom. It was like a girls' trip to Disney. So fun.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah, that's cool. And like later this month, I'm taking Mercy wanted to go, but we're going to Atlanta to see the Red Sox play the Braves. It'll be ballpark number 17. Josiah's going to meet us there,
Yeah.
and that's we're more than halfway, so that's pretty.
Well, Mercy
awesome.
wanted to go, and you're bringing her. She's coming.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
coming. Yeah, no, it's going to
You're
be.
doing both kids.
Yeah, and you're like, have fun.
That was my favorite when you were playing it and you're like, wait, you're not coming? I'm going alone with the kids. And I was like, they're all grown. They feed themselves. They're self-sufficient. You got this.
It's gonna be a test of my patience, but it's okay. I'm
I
embracing
think
it.
you're going to have so much fun. I think it's going to be more fun that mom's not there, honestly. It's going
We'll
to be
see
special.
about that. I don't know, but
I'll
yeah.
be on call for any emotional meltdowns along the way.
Yeah. We also mentioned like we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but as you've embraced powerlifting, you're getting ready to schedule your first competition.
What?
And I can't wait to be there cheering you on. I've been joking that I'm going to dress up as a mascot or have some sort of outrage. I won't do that. But
No.
I'll be there cheering you on.
You have been so supportive of this, and just a clear example, I told you about it. So I just talked to my coach. I couldn't do the earlier one that I wanted. Actually, it worked out double because that one's happening today, and there's a wicked snowstorm. I wouldn't have been able to make it, but I've scheduled this one, and I barely gave you the date, and within like a couple of hours, you came. You're like, okay, just so you know, I booked our hotel room because it's not local. So you're like, I booked the hotel room the night before. Like you were just on it, and then started making all the mascot dress up jokes, which
Yeah.
I was like, I'll leave you at the hotel if you come dressed like that. But little things like your support of me in this and like, hey, I booked the hotel. I'm going to be there cheering you on was just, I love that because you don't care about powerlifting.
No.
And powerlifting,
Well,
let's be
I care
honest.
about seeing you powerlift.
Yeah, but powerlifting, in case you don't know, well, I warned you, but so our listeners know, is kind of like if I decided to do cross country meets.
Well, it's worse than cross country. It's more like track, where
Yeah.
it's like you're going to be waiting around all day to do your 3 lifts or
Yeah,
whatever. But
all
so
day.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be your concierge. I don't think they probably use that phrase. I don't think the word concierge and powerlifting go together often. But whatever
Pretty sure not.
I don't know what would I be? Your coach, your assistant, I don't. You have to think about what would be the right word for somebody who's just there to help a powerlifter but not coach them.
So your guess is as good as mine. Definitely not concierge.
I'm your
though.
dumbbell.
You're my dumbbell. You're just going to be my husband there to support me.
fine.
How about that?
I could do that. Is there like sort of what do they call when you're having a baby And
A doula?
I'm going to be
You're going to be a
a
powerlifting
powerlifting,
doula?
whatever the version of a
No,
doula is.
there's so much grunting and pushing in it. So really
It's very similar
bad
then. Yeah.
imagery.
Yeah.
You're not coming backstage anymore.
Yeah. As we wind up, we've talked about a lot of kind of like really cool things that came through, and we've shared some failures, but one of those things that we were talking about this week a lot was is we have decided to stay in this home for the next couple of years. We have been saying, okay, what are the investments we want to make in our house? And some of those are very Monday, the roof is being redone. Like these are very like unattractive, just things you got to do.
Essentials. It needs a roof though.
Resealing the driveway, just things that you're doing like maintenance so that you don't have to like worry about it. But we had a little bit of money set aside, and we're like, we should do one fun thing with this money. And we have both talked about it different times, but I've probably been in the lead chair of like being like, it'd be really cool to have a hot tub, partially because we have friends who have them with adult children, and they said, hey, this is a great space to have a conversation with kids. So we went after it. We started researching it.
You got the kids like
all excited
manipulating me into
this. That's a whole nother story.
They were like, Mom, this is why.
You know what would really help our relationship?
Yeah. You were coming at it from all. You came in hot with this one.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like I was twisting your arm or anything like that.
Oh no, it's hard. It's a hot tub. I mean, yeah.
So, and we were like, okay, where do we put it? And we started getting contractors to come and figure that out. And we found a hot tub that we thought would be the right one. We put a sizable deposit down on it that was non-refundable. And then we're getting into this, and we knew we'd have to have an electrician come to run because you need 220 instead of 110. So working through all those things, and I was kind of taking the lead on it. And then we found out this last week, I got a phone call from the electrician. He's like, it's not an issue of running the line. He's like, your house, because you have an in-law apartment, doesn't have enough load to support this. Like you would have to get an excavator in. It would be like another 10 grand to 15 grand to just to get to the point where you could start the project.
Because all of here, it's all buried. We don't have.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's underground. So there's just a lot of layers to it. And
literally.
Yeah. Sod, dirt. Good dad joke. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I thought you would.
So, I mean, I get that call, and it's like a gut punch because I feel like an idiot. Like, I didn't know that. I don't know how I would know, but like you feel in that moment just like, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, oh no. So I'm go back and I'm like reading, like, I already put money down on this thing. Like, that was a lot of money. I have a feeling that we're going to lose some of that money, if not all of that money. And so I don't know if I think I texted you at first, but then we talked about it, and I was just like, I was feeling pretty bad.
Yeah. You texted me at work, and I forget, but essentially you're like, we'll talk about this when you get home, but I got bad news and so I got home, and I mean, you were pretty bummed, and just.
Yeah, there's the disappointment of like, oh, we had something that we wanted to get, we can't. And then there's like the feeling dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I was like, maybe it's because I'm usually the dumb one. I'm like, you're experiencing my everyday reality. So I was like, it is what it is. Like, what you don't know, what you don't know. So I was like, I'm just going to call them and explain it to the guy and see, because my theory in life is it never hurts to ask. You never know. And so I did. I called the company, explained the situation. Also just fully owned, like, I understand that, we signed a contract.
We made a mistake.
Yeah, this is on us. And so it's not like I have this expectation that you better fix this, whatever. And
yeah, because on the other end, I'm thinking, this guy, he's probably making, money based on how many tubs they sell per month or whatever, even if he's not direct commission. Like, he's a salesperson. And that doesn't mean manipulative, but like, yeah, he did a good job. He was really helpful to us throughout the whole process. And so, yeah. And honestly, mainly tubs, I would highly recommend if you're in New England. They were really good customer service on the front end, super helpful, very communicative. That was one of those moments where you were like, I can step into this, and I don't know what will happen, but we can see. And yeah, that was one of those times where I felt like you just showed up.
Yeah, no, it was literally, I think I made 3 phone calls, and they fully refunded. They're like, hey, and he was the same. He's like, this stuff happens. He's like, I forget what he said. I'm like, I knew he was such a nice
Yeah.
sales guy anyways, but even at the end, he's like, I just appreciate your willingness to consider us in your,
Yeah.
I
I
was
was like,
like,
I'm leaving you a 5-star Google review.
literally, I will
yeah.
leave you good reviews. I'll send anyone that's got good electricity running to their house your way, pal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sad news, no hot tub. So we're going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So if
It's okay.
listeners have any, this is what you should do instead.
We'll figure it out. We'll regroup. It's okay. We're going to be just fine.
Probably won't be a puppy. I'm not going to win that.
Whatever it is, it's not going to run on a lot of
220.
electric.
Fair.
So, yeah. Two things to think as we kind of wrap up at the very end here. I think, to ask some good questions. One would be thinking through, when's the last time that I called the good in the other person out loud? And doing that publicly, which you've overachieved on this podcast. I feel like I felt like I was fishing for compliments and you were just complimenting me for 40 minutes. So on my bad days, I'm just going to listen back to this. But how do you,
soccer wife? Is that what we're gonna call them?
how do you speak it? How do you vocalize it? As you mentioned before, sometimes for me, even based on that interaction over the hot tub, like I wrote a note for you and just was like, hey, this really meant a lot to me. And then another huge thing in the area of empowerment that I think you and I do well is that there are things, like we even started this whole conversation about the tattoo or the ballparks or whatever, powerlifting, where like one of us really doesn't care. Like it's not that important to us. It's not like disdain. It's just if not on my radar.
We wouldn't sacrifice or make the investment if it was just us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, the part of marriage that I think that we're trying to drive at here is the points in marriage where you can say, this matters to me because it matters to you.
Yeah.
And I think that is sort of the underlying ethic that we're talking about here, is that to lean in on things that it's like, you know what, because this matters to you, it is important to me. And I think you do that super well.
Yeah, that's right. It matters to me that it matters to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a good word.
And I love you enough to make those phone calls or send you to those ballparks. whatever makes your heart happy. I'm here for it.
That's all right. I won't make you watch any more baseball games. It's fine.
Well, that is the other side of it. I'm not dragging you to the tattoo parlor making you get a sleeve either. So, yeah, I support you.
I get to bring you to the hospital for your invasive test, though. So
stay tuned.
I will not be the doula during that experience.
They for sure do not call them a doula.
Yeah.
There's no doula.
No doula.
But thank goodness for anesthesiologists.
Well, we may have a good story next week. We'll see how this goes. Stay tuned.
Until then, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Bye.